Hey y'all, Coach in the Fight here, talking about the moon yet again. I thought I had this put to rest. I thought I submitted the video that would answer all of the questions about when the month is supposed to start. But sure enough, people are coming up with all kinds of other ideas, other elements to confuse themselves so that they can still yet have confusion on when the month actually starts. Talking about the sacred month, the Hebrew month, our Father's month according to his calendar. But, I think I'm starting to notice a pattern here, though. These people only really come out and start talking about these feast days right around the Father's holy days, talking about stuff like Pentecost and tabernacles and unleavened bread. You see these people who always around these holidays, they come out and they try to tell you that the new moon or the new month starts on the full moon. They'll come and try to tell you that, everybody's got the calendar wrong. They'll come and try to tell you that nobody knows when the feast days are, even though there are millions, if not billions, of people around the world celebrating our Father's feast days on the same day every season. Back on Passover, if you go in and you look up the correct date of Passover and you do a search, you'll see, thousands, if not 10,000s of videos that people have posted of them celebrating on that day, just like tabernacles, just like unleavened bread. You'll see people that were celebrating on that day, but you'll have these other individuals that will come in and they will say that those days were wrong, and they do that every season. Like I said, I believe I understand why it is that they're doing this. Guys, you have to realize the importance of the Father's feast days. We've done several classes on feast days, and in many of those classes, we taught you how it is that we receive the seal of God during the feast days. You can see that over in the book of Esdras, chapter 2. I think it's verse 38 or 39 that talks about how we receive the seal of God during the feast days, meaning that when you are keeping up with the feast days, when you're actually participating and doing what it is that you're supposed to do on those holy, sacred days, that you actually receive a sealing. Oh, and so, and we also, read over in Deuteronomy and in Exodus and, some of the other books in the Torah, how the feast days are a sign between our Father and us. He said it in several places that, keeping the feast days is a sign between us, which kind of, sign is synonymous with mark. And so, we receive the seal, or we receive the mark of our Father on the feast days. Well, it seems like you have these individuals who pop up every season, every holiday season, and try to steer us away from the correct day. They try to say that the feast days fall on a different day. And, when you think about how much evil is in this world, it starts to make sense. On one hand, on one side, you have these people who are trying to tell you that you aren't supposed to be keeping the law at all. They tell you that you aren't supposed to be doing the feast. They tell you that, Jesus did away with the feast, all to stop you from receiving that mark, all to stop you from receiving that seal. If they can stop you from keeping the feast day, they can stop you from getting the mark of God. They can stop you from getting the seal of God. And so you have, on one half, you got these people who say you ain't supposed to be doing them at all. And then, okay, you say, then on the other side, you have people who are trying to steer you to do them on the wrong day. It's like, well, okay, well, you decided you are actually going to keep the feast days despite us telling you not to all of these years. You're going to go ahead and do them anyway. Okay, well, fine. Do them on the wrong day. Don't do them on the correct day. Do them 2 weeks later, or do them the following month. Don't do them on the correct day. That's two sides to the same coin. Both of them are trying to prevent you. Both of them are trying to prevent us from celebrating our Father's feast day on the clean day, on the right day. I feel a little bit sorry for, you guys who haven't taken the time out to read your scripture. And I ain't talking about, reading Psalms 23 over and over, or reading First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 and 17 over and over, making it like that's the entire scripture. I'm talking about reading the Bible from Genesis chapter 1 all the way to Revelations chapter 22. For, anybody who hasn't done that yet, it doesn't have what they call discernment. And so they do not really understand what our Father's true message is. And I feel sorry for those individuals, because they're like like a bottle on the ocean. They're just, being tossed to and fro by the waves, and they don't know who it is that they're supposed to be listening to. That's why the Bible, Revelations, talks about the 144,000 being virgins. These are the individuals who are designated to survive the tribulation and will go on to repopulate the earth. There'll be a few people with them, but these are the people that will help that multitude get across the apocalypse and the tribulation. Well, one of the key features about those people is they're known as virgins, and of course that has nothing to do with sexuality. Of course, the first commandment of the Bible was to be fruitful and multiply, which means to have a lot of babies. So it's not talking about being a sexual virgin at all. You have to want some, when people start talking in that manner, you start to pick on them a little bit, and you ask them, well, what would the Father, what would God, what would he want with male virgins? What is he planning on doing with them? That's not what he's talking about at all. What he's talking about is people who haven't taken part in the church doctrine, the harlot church, like you hear about in the book of Revelations, that prostitute, that religious organization that the whore of Babylon is referred to. She's referred to as a prostitute, and what it means by being a virgin is these are people who have not slept with that prostitute. They haven't gone in and fornicated with the religions of the world, and by not fornicating with the religions of the world, they don't have all of these fallacies in their doctrine. They don't have all of this leavening, all of this confusion that those who are they didn't bother to read their scripture. They put their Bibles down and turned on TBN and decided to listen to the religious leaders of the world tell them what it is they're supposed to know. Instead of sitting there in the comfort of their own home reading their Bible, they decided to go down to church and let the preacher tell them what it is they're supposed to know. Well, guys, you got to remember, you didn't pick those preachers because they were biblically wise. You didn't pick the preachers because they knew much about the Bible. The ones who knew the most about the Bible are the ones that you shunned and got rid of, talking about your congregation down there at your church. You had the preacher that came in talking about you were supposed to be keeping the laws of Moses, and talking about you were supposed to be obeying the commandments. Those are the first people that you ran out of the church. The only people that you really allowed to come in and stand in front of that pulpit are people who were ignorant of the scripture, didn't know the what the Bible was actually saying, but yet they were willing to stand up there in front of you and just make stuff up to make you feel good. And those itching ears or whatever, they was making you feel good. And that's what you wanted, and that's why you have those particular preachers down there now. These people that will survive the tribulation. They don't listen to those individuals. They don't listen to Gentiles. We should not be listening to Gentiles even till today. You have to remember the story. The only reason why Gentiles are allowed to teach in the church today is because of what Constantine did when he came in and destroyed the disciples, took the Bibles from them, and created what he know as the Catholic Church. The first thing he did was he installed Gentile priests in order to teach the word. And so we are in error by listening to these guys, in error listening to these Gentiles in the first place. Would you listen to somebody who was in bankruptcy tell you how to manage your finances? Would you listen to a person who was morbidly obese with ketchup stains all over their shirt tell you how it is that you're supposed to diet and exercise? No, you wouldn't. But you'll listen to somebody who is breaking the Ten Commandments teach you about righteousness. That's what's being talked about over here in Second Thessalonians chapter 2 when he says you'll give these people a strong delusion. They're taking pleasure in unrighteousness, unrighteousness meaning they don't want nothing to do with the laws that regulate us. Though that's what righteousness means. When somebody is righteous, they're actually obeying the scripture and doing what the scripture told us to do. And when they're unrighteous, it means they're doing whatever. When they're self-righteous, they've thrown away the laws of Moses. They've thrown away the scriptural laws and have created their own laws. And since they're obeying the own laws that they have created for themselves, they are now calling themselves righteous. That's what it's called. That's what it's meant to be, self-righteous. When you just, you didn't just go on and created your own rules or whatever. You can see about that over there in the book of Romans chapter 10. You see where it says, for being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves to the righteousness of God. So these are self-righteous individuals, and then you have the unrighteous individuals, and they're standing in opposition of those who are actually trying to keep the law, and so you read over in Second Thessalonians that these guys are going to get a strong delusion, a strong delusion. You're going to be highly deceived, and they are completely deceived. But anyway, I told you guys I was going to talk to you about the moon. Now, what I've done is I've gone in through my collection and pulled out 3 different translations of the book of Enoch. That's what you're looking at there. You have one translation coming from the Forbidding Mysteries of Enoch. You have another translation coming from the Pseudepigrapha. And then you even have a third translation of Enoch. 3 different ways of writing the same thing. This one is coming from the Researcher's Library of Ancient Texts, Volume 1. There's actually 5 volumes to this book. If you're to try to get some of these hidden apocryphal books, I would suggest you buying them in something like this, a collection where you have a bunch of them. But anyway, when you look in here, you see that there are actually 5 different ways of saying the same thing. This one says, and on the first day she is called the new moon, for on that day light rises upon her. And when you come over to this translation, you see the same thing, just written in a different way. I'm having trouble reading it on my screen here. Maybe you guys can read it. Maybe back up and try to read it. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really read it there. Then when the sun rises, the moon rises together with it, taking a portion of 1/2 of its light. The night just beginning monthly journey on its first lunar day. So it's talking about its first lunar day when it starts to receive the light. It's saying the exact same thing. And when you come over to this translation, it says, and when the sun rises, the moon rises with it, receiving a portion of the light. And that night, when it commences its period, previously to the day of the month, the moon sets with the sun. It's just 3 ways of saying the same thing. This is Enoch. These are the first books ever written. That's what it means to be like a child. When somebody comes and tells you that Enoch said that the new moon is the first day of the month. You tell that to a child, and a child will say, okay, the new moon is the first day of the month. You tell that to some old arrogant adult, No, he got to go check Wikipedia. He got to go look and see what the Bible scholars have to say. He's got to go find text after text and look at all of these, man's words and compare man's word. He can't take Enoch's words for it. Enoch's words are not good enough. The first books ever written here on the planet. He's got to go, read through the Talmud. He's got to go read, uh, the Bible scholars that talk about how the children in Babylon did this and did that. That's why the Messiah said we have to be like little children. And so the Enoch is clearly telling us that the new moon starts in with the first sighting of the moon. Now, come over here to my little old raggedy calendar I got on the wall. It says that you have a new moon starting tonight. Right? And it says that the new moon is there. And then if I look down here somewhere, it'll talk about the full moon following on Halloween. Now, this is a lot of what people are doing, guys. These people who are all of a sudden trying to tell you that the month starts on the full moon. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you celebrate the Lord's sacred day on Halloween. One of them came out and said it directly in the comment section, is that Tabernacles falls on Halloween. So, if that ain't a trick for you, I don't know what is. You're going to be out there celebrating the the so-called Lord's sacred day on Halloween. Yeah, okay. If they ain't trying to take the mark from you, I don't know what they trying to do. Let me tell you how this thing is getting ready to play out, guys. We're in the time when the wise people of the world are being humiliated by the arrogant. This is what they call the war on words that's going on here. This is why, the Reverend Pastor Deacon Dr. Doug has huge congregations with millions of dollars. He's on TV, able to come in and spread mistruths like it ain't nothing. Well, there's coming a day when the transition is made, when what you read about over in Daniel in chapter 12, when this transition is made, when the tail becomes the head, those individuals who are standing up arrogant and proud now are going to be dumbed down. They're going to be, the roles are going to change. They're going to become the humiliated ones. They're the ones who's, going to sound real foolish. Whereas the wise people sound foolish now, talking about keeping the law this and obeying the commandment that, to some of these people, it sounds like the dumbest thing they've ever heard in their life. Well, when the apocalypse comes and we find ourselves in trouble, it is those individuals going to sound real stupid, And, so that's what we got to look forward to. But anyway, you come over here and you look at Psalms chapter 81 and verse 3. This is one of the main places that people use to try to say that the new moon is the full moon. So I'm going to use it to show that it's not. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid of any of these guys. I'll come in and use their own weapons against them. First thing I'm going to show you is that they are using a different translation than the King James version of the Bible. They might need to simply find themselves a better Bible, because the new moon is nowhere, the full moon is nowhere listed in the King James version of the Bible. If you do a word search or a phrase search for full moon, you won't find not one full moon in the King James version of the Bible. But, when you go to other translations, you'll find the full moon in this one. And that's why all of those guys run to this one verse right here. And they say this verse proves that the full moon is actually the first day of the month, or the full moon is the new moon, is what they'll say. And that's kind of, that don't even sound right. How many times have you gone out or heard somebody say, "Ooh, that's a full moon," and then somebody else looks and says, "No, that moon ain't full." It's hard to tell when a full moon is. You have to have a really trained eye to recognize a full moon, because the day before and the day after, that moon looks pretty full. It looks really full. It's only, you almost have to use some type of mathematical calculation to know exactly when the full moon is. So how is that a new moon? What's new about it when it was almost just as fat yesterday as it is today? To the untrained eye, you can't tell the difference between a moon that's waxing gibbous and one that's full. it looks almost the same. Yesterday, even the day before, they look full. And today you telling me that this is a full moon? And then tomorrow you're gonna be looking up there again and they're gonna say, why ain't this one full? Here it is 4 or 5 days in a row. We've been thinking we've been having a full moon. Ain't nothing new about that. It's when that moon is 0% illuminated and you looking up and then all of a sudden you start to see a little bit of light in it, like Enoch said over there. Then you see it is new. Now it's new. It was nothing. Now I'm seeing something up there that's new. Everybody can tell that. You don't need mathematics to do that. All you need is, turn your eyeballs in the right direction. It wasn't there yesterday, and there it is today, and it looks, very, very small, like a newborn child. It's tiny, and all of a sudden it's growing, that's new. Anyway, look at this verse here. It says, blow up the trumpets in the new moon and the time appointed on the solemn feast days. On our solemn feast days. Notice that there is no mention of a full moon here. Notice how it says in the time appointed. Then it says on our solemn feast days. It's telling them when to blow the trumpets. This is how they did it back then. When they would see that small sliver of the moon, they would go blow the trumpets to let everybody know that we were in a new month. They still do it today. We have trumpets around here, and we blow them on the new moon, and we blow them on the appointed days during the solemn days, just like this verse says. But let's go over and let's look at Bible Gateway, and let me show you some other translations. All right, BibleGateway.com, and we're looking at Psalms 81 verse 3, and we're looking in the New International Version, and we're looking in the Common English Version at verse 3. And you see now it's talking about a full moon. But, would it make sense? If the full moon is the new moon, like people say the full moon is the new moon, why would it be listed in here twice? But anyway, look there at the one on the right, the Common English, Common English Bible. It says, blow the horn on the new moon at the full moon for our celebration. At the full moon for our celebration. See, that's key. It's saying at the full moon. So it's saying the full moon for our celebration. So the full moon is on the celebration. But then come over here and look at Leviticus 23. First, let's stop over here in Exodus chapter 23. This is part of the book of the covenant. I will go in and I will read this, guys. This is how they're trying to deceive you by telling you that you are not supposed to, read and understand Exodus chapter 20 through 23. That is what's called the book of the covenant. That should be a permanent part of the blueprint of your life. That should be how you are living your life. But when it says somebody who's taking pleasure in unrighteousness, this is what it's talking about. They don't want nothing to do with this law, these contracts, these rules over here. They don't want nobody telling them what to do. They want to be able to do what it is that they want to do, But anyway, that's that strong delusion coming for them. They're already in it. You can see it. People who have read the entire scripture see that strong delusion that we're talking about. Anyway, you see right here in verse 14, it says, 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. This is what it's talking about when it's talking about the celebration time that we read about over there. You see, it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's one of the mandatory feasts. It goes on, talks about the Feast of Harvest. That's what they call Pentecost. And then the Feast of Ingathering. That's what they call Tabernacles. Those are 3 times in a year that we're supposed to meet. Unleavened bread, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles. But, here's the deal. Let's go over here and look at Leviticus 23, and we can see when these feast days are supposed to fall. And let's see, we'll come back up here to the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You see right there, you see it talking about Passover. And then in verse 6, it's talking about in the 15th day of the month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it's telling you right there that the Feast of Unleavened Bread falls on the 15th day of the month. Not the first day of the month, the 15th day of the month. you look, and if you do the calculation when it comes to the Feast of Pentecost, you will see that it also falls in the feast in the 15th day of the third month. That was the 15th day of the first month. Now we're talking about the 15th day of the third month. You have the mandatory feast of first fruits or Pentecost. And then you come all the way down here and start looking at the Feast of Tabernacles, and you will see that it also falls in the 15th day of the month. You see right there in verse 34, in the 15th day of the month. So you have 3 mandatory feast days, and when you're putting that all together with what you see over here in the Common English Bible, and it's talking about at the full moon for our day of celebration, the full moon falls on a day of celebration, which is on the 15th day of the month. Now, it makes sense when you think about it, especially people who live in the country. Here it is that you have these huge celebrations. Many of these celebrations go through the night. They start at sundown, and you doing a whole lot of your celebration that night. Got people cooking out, people, sitting by the fire, people, some of these events you're sleeping in tents. So you can imagine, if you're going to be sleeping in a tent, for a week, that, not everybody is going to, be so quick to jump in that tent. As soon as the sun go down, they're going to be sitting out by the fire. Well, wouldn't it make sense that you would have the that type of a celebration while there's a full moon in the sky, opposed to a no naked moon? If you ever go outside in the country where there's not a lot of lights going on, not a lot of artificial lighting, the difference between a night when there is a full moon and a night when there is a new moon is unbelievably different. I mean, it's like night and day, literally night and day. I'm a hunter, and it's illegal to hunt deer at night. But sometimes I'll be out there during a full moon, and I'm like, shoot, I could shoot a deer in this much light. As much light as out here, you could actually see that deer over there, because it's a lot of light. And, so you think about, our Father in his infinite wisdom, he put these 3 mandatory days, which we saw falls on the 15th day of the month and not the first day of the month, during the full moon, on the full moon of the month. Now, the memorial blowing of trumpets doesn't fall on one of the mandatory feast days. It's not part of the big 3, the high holy days, as they call it, but it is a holy day. But it falls on the first day of the month. But, all they're doing on that month is blowing trumpets. They're not sleeping in tents. They're not, having a communion like they do on Passover or unleavened bread. They're all they're doing is, all this holiday is about is priests and Levites standing out there in the wide open, looking up at the sky right there at sunset, noticing that first sliver of the moon, which represents the first day of the month, and then they blow trumpets, letting everybody know that the 7th month has started. That's all that day is about. And after they finish blowing those trumpets, they go back to their houses, eat dinner, whatever they're going to do that night, and go to sleep. They ain't going to a tent. They ain't going to a bonfire. They ain't going to, a marshmallow roast. They ain't sacrificing no animals or making no offerings or anything. They're blowing the trumpets and they're going home. So, like you see over here in Jubilees chapter 6 verse 37, like it's talking about here, they're taking an unclean day and having a feast day. Like we talked about earlier, some of these people are intentionally trying to make you celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles on Halloween. Man, that's bad. But anyway, I'll continue to try to put these videos out, because it's important stuff. Like I said, this is one of the most important things, is these feast days. That's how you know the prophets of Baal, is because they keep the feasts of Baal. Many of these, near bearded, Gentile prophet wannabes are going to be on your video screen for you to see dressed up like Easter bunnies and reindeer here coming in a few months. You know what I mean? They're going to talk you out of doing the feast days or make you think they're supposed to be on the wrong day. But then when it comes to the pagan holidays, they're going to promote them every single day. They're going to promote them every single day. You know what I mean? They wanting you to celebrate on the wrong day. They're going to be trick-or-treating. They're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, you know what I'm saying, to worship the gods of Baal all the time while they telling you not to worship our Father as he prescribes in, the book of the covenant, in the statutes, and in the rest of the scripture. You know, I say I feel sorry for those guys, but some people want to be tricked. Some people they want to be tricked. That's why the kingdom of heaven is not made for the many. It's only made for the few. There's only few people that's actually going to make this survival through the apocalypse and go on to the other side. That's why they got so many people taking pride in the fact that they about to go away and be thrust into the spirit world. It's only a few people that are really, even want to make it over into a place where they have to obey the Father's rules. You got these people now, they don't want to obey the Father's rules now. And then all of a sudden, they're going to want to make it to the other side of the tribulation where they're going to have to obey, where they're going to be under his kingship, where he's actually going to be the ruler of the planet. That don't even make sense. They don't want him saying or having nothing to do with their daily lives now, but yet they're looking forward to the day when he's actually going to become their king. No, they ain't. That's why they're planning on getting out of here. That's why their whole Bibles, they done ripped out every book, every page except First Thessalonians chapter 4. It's the only chapter that they read. Is that and First Corinthians chapter 15. The rest of the Bible don't mean nothing to them. All they looking for is a day when they can escape this world and go off into the spirit world. Well, you heard the phrase, they got a rude awakening coming. Yeah, they got a rude awakening coming. But anyway, I apologize for my frustration here. I am getting a little bit perturbed by this, but I'm gonna try to maintain. I understand how this all works. Like I said, we are in the war of words, so I realize this has to go on. But I take pride in people that are looking to me for some type of leadership. It wasn't too many years ago when I used to, I spent a lot of time crying, saying, Father, I wish there was at least one person that I could count on, one person that I could call up and, ask questions. And nobody never appeared until one day, I don't know if he told me directly or I heard it intuitively or whatever, but he told me I was the guy. He told me that, I was the answer guy. There is nobody for me to call and ask no questions because I was going to be the one that people can call and ask the questions. So I had to go through all of those hardships. I had to learn everything the hard way. And so now that, when people ask questions, I got an answer for them. Well, people that are dependent on me for the answers, I get a little bit upset when, you got others, individuals coming in and try to steer them astray. I take that personally, no different than if we was on a real live battlefield and, I'm trying to gear up these soldiers for battle. And here you have this dingling over here that's, teaching people the wrong stuff. You know what I'm saying? And wear the wrong equipment, put your bullets in backwards, what I'm saying? You don't need no bullets, just run around naked. They can't shoot you, you're invisible kind of crap. I take that personally. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and close this video out. If you got something out of it, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. If you don't like me, hit the dislike button. It don't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to make you like me. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for your survival. You know what I'm saying? This is a war we're in. We'll have a celebration party at the end of this thing. And then we'll hug it out. But until then, it's my job to put the hard stuff in front of you. You know what I mean? It's my job to make you tough, to make you strong. You know what I mean? Anyway, today is October the 17th. we have a new moon appearing in the sky tonight. If you ain't too late, if you're watching this video on October the 17th, 2020, make it a point to get out there and try to see the new moon. Looks like we got clear skies, at least in this part of the country, this part of the world. It's clear skies out there, not no clouds. And so we should be able to see this new moon appear. It's going to be right at sunset. You're only going to have about 15 to 30 minutes after the sun goes over that horizon to actually see this new moon. I would be out there, if this is your first time, you haven't done this before, I would be out there right at sundown or even before sundown so you can follow where the sun goes down. Look where the sun goes down, and then after the sun goes over the horizon, be looking for the moon up in the sky, approximately 15 degrees if you're out there at that exact time. About 15 degrees up in the sky, and it's going to look like a very thin thumbnail, like a fingernail that you done cut off, you know what I mean? Very small, very, if there's no clouds, it's going to be pretty bright and you'll see it, but look for that tonight. If you're watching this video late, let's go over and see where you'll find it at. All right, for those who are late, and we'll be looking for the new moon in November. Look for it about on the 16th. Remember that man considers the new moon the 0% moon. That's why you see him talking about on October the 16th when it actually is going to appear in the sky on the 17th. It's not that man is wrong and got the wrong date, is that he's considering the 0% moon a new moon, something that you can't see at all when, you know, the priests and the Levites have to actually see it. So you can start looking for the new moon a day or two after November the 15th or a day or two after December the 14th. Look for it. Let's get in the habit of actually going in and, you know, finding and seeing these moons. And then there is a website that we could use. It's called truthofyahweh.org/moon.html. This is a website that allows individuals to come in and report the moon every month. So whether you see it or whether you miss it, you know, this could be a good website. If you see the moon, you could be one of the first ones in your area to actually report when it was seen. But if you miss it, you can go into this website and, you know, verify that the new moon was spotted around the world. This is especially handy if you have clouds in your area or something like that. You can come in and search here to see who's actually seen what so far. All right, y'all, I'm gonna close this out. Shalom.